Hello guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we will be discussing prospects once again, this time breaking down the top 10 goaltending prospects the entire NHL has to offer. I've been wanting to cover this topic really ever since I started breaking down prospects over these past couple months. I can't wait to get into it, but these videos do take a lot of time regarding any top 10 ranking or really any video that I've been doing over these past couple months. So it would really mean a lot if you end up hitting that like, subscribe button, and putting on that notification bell so you guys can stay in tune when new videos come out. It means a lot. It goes a long way for me early on this channel here, guys, so just thank you in advance. But like I said, we will be breaking down the top 10 prospects the NHL has to offer. This was not an easy list to make by any stretch of the imagination, and I'm really left biting my tongue regarding a lot of prospects that I just couldn't cram in. It was so difficult, and there are plenty of arguments to be had, and don't worry, I will have honorable mentions towards the end of this video, so make sure you stay tuned for the entire vid, find out all my thoughts and all my rankings regarding these top 10 great NHL prospects. We're going to see who is going to flourish and hit the NHL level and maybe be a great phenom in the goaltending category for the league one day, and who are others that simply won't make the jump, because the odds of all these prospects panning out are always slim to none. So it'll be interesting to see what the future holds for all of them, but a lot of great promise and a lot of great talent, and I cannot wait to get in this video. So without further ado, guys, let's get right into it. Starting off at number 10, we have Justus Oninen. I know I probably butchered his name, and if I did, I apologize. I'm probably going to do the same with some other goaltenders here today. It's not intentional by any means, but Justus, a whopping 6'3", arguably 6'4", 200-pound goaltender, originally drafted in the 3rd round back in 2018 by the Colorado Avalanche, has steadily been, in my mind, over this past year, a top 10 goaltending prospect for sure. If you look at his history, he is also part of the Finnish military, so it's really cool. He was dealing with the Finnish military over this past year during the offseason, so he has a lot of external things going on besides his hockey career, as I know that this is a situation that a lot of players from Finland do in fact deal with or opt to deal with, which is very interesting and really cool at the end of the day. So with having all those external factors, he has still played great hockey and has had a strong start to the season, playing in Liga as a 20-year-old. This year in the 2020-2021 season, in 7 games played, appearances, if you will, he had 4 wins, 2 losses, 1 overtime loss, a save percentage of .900 even, and a goals allowed average of 2.00. But back in the 2019-2020 season, the real big season, that was his first debut, was actually being a mainstay in Liga, starting a bunch of games, 23 appearances, in which he had 15 wins, 5 losses, 3 overtime losses, a goals allowed average of 1.77, and yes, a save percentage of .929. Remarkable numbers for a 19-20-year-old playing in a men's league, one of the best men's league in the entire world outside of North America, and the Finnish Elite League. So he has put up very promising numbers, and it looks like he can very well have a bright future with the Colorado Avalanche organization. The Avs, it's going to be curious to see what their long-term goaltender will be. Is it going to be a guy like Philip Grubauer? Is it going to be a guy like Pavel Francouz? I think more short-term, yes, but long-term, obviously not. So could Justus be that future number 1 for them going down the road over this next decade? I think there's a good argument to be had that yes, he can be. So watch out, guys. Justus is a very strong goaltender. I like a lot about his game. Even though he is big and a little bit heavier set, he is still very nimble. He can make some very strong saves within the crease. He can get out there a little bit, be a little too aggressive at times, but for the most part, he is a very composed goaltender, has a strong glove hand. Given his size, he does have the advantage in that front, as do most goaltenders when they're bigger for the most part, unless you're really slow. But he has all the capability and all the raw tools to be something strong at the NHL level, so don't be surprised to see him hit the NHL in a couple of years. I know goaltenders take a while, but he's definitely a good exception to be had with having a promising future. Next up at number 9, we have PRIMEAU, another goaltender I've talked about in previous videos regarding the Montreal Canadiens. Such an interesting prospect. A former 7th round pick back in 2017 by the Habs, has really worked up rather quickly into being one of the more promising goaltending prospects the entire league has to offer. At another big size of 6'3", just under 200 pounds, the 21-year-old had a remarkable year as his debut year in pro hockey in the AHL last year, playing for the Habs affiliate in 33 games played, had 17 wins, 11 losses, 3 overtime losses, a save percentage of .908, and a goals allowed average of 2.45. In the year prior, however, in the 18-19 season, back in his last year in Northeastern for college, he had a remarkable season, including 25 wins, 10 losses, 1 overtime loss, a goals allowed average of 2.09, and a save percentage of .933. This past season, however, he even had a cup of coffee with the Habs, including a win and a loss in 2 appearances, a goals allowed average of 2.52, and a save percentage of .931. He's so composed, he's so mature, he's fast for his size as well, similar to Eustace in that front, and is a guy that, yes, he can get caught in some uncomfortable situations at times. Something that I've noticed with his game is that he could leave up some things on that blocker side or getting caught in between the armpit, just more down in the middle, if you will, but for the most part, he has a very strong game, and a guy that the Habs surely didn't expect, I would imagine, to blossom as quick as he has as a 21-year-old, being a 7th round pick back in 2017. He has a strong rebound control. He's just a really balanced goaltender, and surely looks like he can be the heir apparent to a guy like, oh, I don't know, Carey Price. We'll see what the future holds, but I definitely think that CAYDEN PRIMEAU has that potential to be hitting the AHL sooner rather than later, and the only thing stopping him from being the backup for the Habs at this point in time, in my opinion at least, is Jake Allen. So we'll see what the future holds there, but CAYDEN PRIMEAU, keep an eye on him. I fully expect him to be an NHL regular, not just as a backup, but that potential to be a starter for the Habs once Carey Price's time in Montreal is done, assuming it's because of retirement. Next up, at number 8, we have a very coveted goaltending prospect, a guy that deserves more credit that he's been given, in my opinion, and that is Jake Oettinger. Oettinger, you might remember him. He even had a cup of coffee this past season for the Dallas Stars in the Stanley Cup Finals. Yes, he had 2 appearances in this past year's playoffs, including one of those games being in the Stanley Cup Finals, if my memory serves me correct. I believe that was one of the games when Dobby just, you know, got lit up quite a bit, so they brought in Oettinger. But regardless, he's a fun story. Originally a first-round draft pick in 2017, and I know Dallas doesn't love the idea of first-round drafted goaltenders. Jake Campbell comes to mind, but Oettinger, I really believe, is a different story. Another towering goaltender at 6'5", over 225 pounds. This guy has it all when it comes to size. It's kind of similar to Ben Bishop, even though Bishop is taller, but he has the speed to make up for it. He's not just a brick. He's not just a log in there that isn't mobile. He very much is, and he has a very strong glove hand, and is really a guy that has that full potential to be a future starter for the Dallas Stars without question. Playing in the AHL this past year, his first full year in pro hockey, in 38 games played, he had 15 wins, 16 losses, 4 overtime losses, a goals average of 2.57, and a save percentage of .917. In the 2018-2019 season, playing his final year in college for Boston University, he had 36 games played, 16 wins, 16 losses, 4 overtime losses, a goals allowed average of 2.45, and a save percentage of .926, and also had a cup of coffee in the AHL that year, that season, 2 seasons ago, including 6 games played. So not bad overall. Oettinger is a guy that he has the size, so does he have the capability? Does he have the raw tools? I surely believe he does. He has shown flashes of brilliance for sure, and is such a composed goaltender. He is not easily rattled by any means, in my opinion, and is a guy that between his glove hand, himself being so composed, has strong rebound control, and he's a guy that I only envision to get better in the years going forward. And I know that they have Ben Bishop currently and Dobby going forward for the likes of the Dallas Stars, but Oettinger is a guy that you could very well see in the AHL as starting as a backup sooner rather than later, and then casually transitioning over these next 2 or 3 years as to being the next starter. He has that potential, he has the raw skills, and he's a very fun and entertaining goaltender to watch. I'm expecting a lot from him over the coming years, and you should too. So watch out, guys. Oettinger is here, and he's definitely going to make a splash at the NHL level, in my opinion. Next up, at number 7, we have a goaltender that maybe not enough people know about, and he definitely deserves a recognition at this point, and that is Dustin Wolf, the 7th round draft pick just from a year ago in 2019 by the Calgary Flames, and what a stud this young man is turning out to be within the Flames organization. Now, normally I wouldn't bring in a goaltender that only has juniors experience to this point, like WHL, for his sake, because you don't really know what you're getting with most players at a WHL or OHL level for that matter once they make that transition to pro hockey in the AHL, NHL. Can they do it? That is always a big question, especially with goaltenders, but Wolf is deserving of being on this list, and here's why. He's only 5'11", 165 pounds. The 19-year-old, you would think, yeah, that's clearly not enough. That's a huge part into why he fell so far in his draft year, and I would agree. But Wolf has proven to be arguably the best goaltender in the WHL these past 2 years, and had a phenomenal season. In 46 games played, he had 34 wins, 10 losses, 2 overtime losses, a goals allowed average of 1.88, and a save percentage of 935. You want to get better than that? The year prior, back in 2018-2019, 61 appearances, he had 41 wins, 15 losses, 2 overtime losses, a goals allowed average of 1.69, and a save percentage of 936. This guy has consistently been, for back-to-back years now, arguably the best goaltender the WHL has to offer, and don't let his size phase you. He makes up for it tremendously with that glove hand. It is a whopping glove hand. You need to watch this kid's highlights. He is truly phenomenal, and he is so composed within his own net. You do not see him getting caught often. You don't see him get caught slipping, if you will. He's not that type of goaltender. He is so composed. He's so in lock with his game as soon as the puck drops, and he is a guy that for sure has the potential to hit the NHL one day. Now, I know it's an uphill climb for a guy like him. He is really a story, a 7th round draft pick, smaller in stature, reminds me of my favorite goaltender in Henrik Lundqvist. I'm not comparing him to Hank, but I'm saying the story as of now is awfully similar. We'll see if he can live up to stuff like that. And other smaller goaltenders in the AHL, think of UC Saros, think of Antoine Hudobin and Dobby, as I was just touching on. Look at what he did in the playoffs. If that's any indication among other smaller goaltenders in the AHL, then look, Dustin Wolf has a very promising future in his hockey career. I think there is that potential. I'm not sure it is certain for him to be an NHL starter, but if he can transition his game to pro hockey in just over this next year and do it smoothly, or at least not terribly, then I think there's a fine argument to be had that he is worthy of being in this ranking as possibly a very great up-and-coming goaltender without his size being a factor in his play. Next up, at number 6, we have Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, another guy that I probably butchered his name. If I did, I apologize. And look, some may argue, Tyler, why do you have him so high on your list? He didn't have a very promising year last year, bouncing between the AHL and the ECHL. Well, we need to take a look at exactly who Ukko is and why he has been so coveted since being drafted in the 2nd round back in 2017 by the Buffalo Sabres, because he surely is going to be, in my opinion, and should be yours too, the next big, finally good goaltender for the Buffalo Sabres, as they have had their goaltending woes for quite some time now, with guys like Hutton currently, and even got their other goaltender as well. I don't know why I'm blanking on his name currently. I apologize. But nonetheless, they need a long-term kind of franchise goaltender, and Ukko definitely has the potential to be just that. So breaking down his game, the 21-year-old, he's 6'4", so many big goalies, right? Outside of Wolf thus far. 220 pounds. He did have double hip surgery just over this past year and a half. So take that into account. It is not an easy thing to bounce back from. But the good thing is that he has youth on his side when it comes to age, and he can develop hopefully into a very promising hockey player still. Bouncing back from his injuries this past year, he had a cup of coffee in the AHL in 10 games played, had 3 wins, 4 losses, 3 overtime losses, a goals allowed average of 3.15, and a save percentage of 874. Not great, but I will give him the benefit of the doubt. These injuries are not an easy thing. And then transitioning to the pro level for the first time too, that's a double whammy. So take these things into account. In the ECHL, however, he had much better numbers in 23 games played. He had 12 wins, 7 losses, 3 overtime losses, a goals allowed average of 2.24, and a save percentage of 912. Back in the 2018-2019 season, Ukko, that's where he stood out the most. In 53 games played, he had 38 wins, 11 losses, 2 overtime losses, a goals allowed average of 2.50, and a save percentage of 920, and he currently has played, at the time of recording this, 1 game in Liga for the 2020-2021 season on alone, I believe. So, Ukko, what really separates him from the rest and why he's so high on this list is hoping that he can fully bounce back from his injuries, and I firmly believe he can. He showed major strides towards the end of last season, bouncing between the AHL and the ECHL. His raw tools are fantastic. He is so flashy. He doesn't let his size face him at all. He takes full advantage of it. He really makes sure that he gets in the way of the opposing shooter by far, and is very nimble, so agile as well for his size, can really wow you with this kind of flashiness. And yes, there are some concerns with him regarding that double hip surgery more than anything else, but I wouldn't let that phase you. Ukko has all the potential to really be the next #1 goaltender for the Buffalo Sabres sooner rather than later, and it would not surprise me at all to see him at least have a cup of coffee with the Sabres next season, assuming that everything goes well with his development in the minors next year. But Ukko, so many things to be excited about with him, and Buffalo Sabres fans will tell you that. I'm not sleeping on him, and neither should you. Don't let his double hip surgery get to you. I know it's a cause for concern, and I understand that argument, but again, let this guy, give him the benefit of the doubt here. If you say has a worse or more of a down year next year in the AHL and the ECHL, then there's a better argument to be had. But until then, I think it's safe to say he's without question deserving to be in this top 10. Next up, at number 5, we have a guy that many could argue is deserving of being higher, and I understand that argument, but I have Connor Ingram here at number 5, and you'll understand why as I break down the remainder of this video. But Ingram, 23 years old, the oldest goaltender to date in this video, 6'2", 196 pounds, originally drafted in 2016 in the 3rd round by the Tampa Bay Lightning, and the Lightning would end up trading him off just over these past 2 years to the Nashville Predators, and I'm sure the Lightning are regretting that looking back now. Ingram has steadily been a fantastic goaltender, especially over this past year in the AHL, was arguably the best goaltender in the entire AHL outside of Kaapo Kähkönen, for instance. But Ingram, in 33 games played, he had 21 wins, 5 losses, and 5 overtime losses. Amazing numbers. A goals allowed average of 1.92. and a save percentage of .933. The year prior, in 2018-2019, playing in Tampa Bay's system at that time still, he had a balance between the AHL and the ECHL. In the ECHL, in 13 games played, he had 8 wins, 2 losses, a goals allowed average of 2.81, and a save percentage of .914. But in the AHL that same year, in 22 appearances, he had 14 wins, 7 losses, a goals allowed average of 2.26, and a save percentage of .922. So he has really dominated at almost every level he's been at. In my opinion, he's definitely deserving of being an NHL regular at this point. The only thing stopping him is being in that Nashville system with having guys like Jussi Saros and Pekka Rinne in front of him. Both those guys had down years next year, so it'll be interesting to see where Ingram is implemented. He should be in the NHL really next year as a backup, but Pekka Rinne isn't going anywhere just yet. I think they'll ride with him for at least another year. Same thing with Jussi Saros, because Saros has youth on his side still. So Ingram, however, has all the ability. He has another strong glove hand. He's another guy that is very agile and just so composed out there. One of the most renowned and well put together goaltending prospects that I have for you today. And I would fully expect him to be an NHL mainstay and arguably a starter in the NHL already if it wasn't for the goalies in front of him. And now the Nashville Predators have one of the best prospect pools in all the NHL, if not the best when it comes to goaltending prospects, with himself along with one other goaltender, which I'm assuming you guys know is going to be mentioned in today's video. Next up, at number 4, we have one of the most coveted prospects in the entire NHL, especially for goaltending, and that is 2019 first-round pick from the Florida Panthers, and yes, Spencer Knight. Spencer Knight was kind of a head-scratcher when you look at going back just over this past year, because the Florida Panthers draft what you would think would be their next number 1 goaltender after the likes of Roberto Luongo retiring, but then they go ahead and get a guy in the name of Sergei Bobrovsky to a massive 7-year deal, and that definitely blew my mind as it did others, because Spencer Knight isn't going to take forever to develop, even with goaltenders taking quite some time, but that's a story for another day. Spencer Knight is truly a fantastic talent and hit major strides in his development in his freshman year in college hockey, playing for Boston College. Another big goaltender, 6'3", 197 pounds, playing for BC this past year in 33 games played. The freshman had 23 wins, 8 losses, 2 overtime losses, a goals allowed average of 1.97, and a save percentage of .933. Remarkable numbers. This past year as well, in the 2018-2019 season, I should say, playing in his final year in the U.S. National Development Team. In exhibition games, in 23 exhibition games, he had 17 wins, 3 losses, 1 overtime loss, a goals allowed average of 2.48, and a save percentage of .918. In 16 normal games with them, he had 15 wins, 1 loss, a goals allowed average of .903, and a save percentage of .221. What has really stood out to me for Spencer Knight is how composed he is as well, but he is definitely a goaltender that does not get rattled by any stretch of the imagination. He does so well under pressure. Truly looks like he has not broken a blunt face, whatever it may be, that poker face, if you will. No matter the situation, if it's an intense tied game, if it's an overtime, whatever it may be, he is so composed and just so level-headed. And for a bigger frame, he is so fast as well, and he is just one of the most balanced goaltenders this NHL prospect pool out of the entire NHL has to offer. You have to be really excited about a guy like Spencer Knight. I know I am. He should be hitting the AHL within these next couple years, starting out probably as a backup for a guy like Sergei Bobrovsky, but that could be a very promising tandem unless the Florida Panthers are able to move that contract in years going forward, because let's be realistic on the Bobrovsky front, not to go on a tangent here, but he is probably going to not have many more years at the type of play that he's been doing, even with the Panthers defense that will hopefully be better for him as soon as next year. Bob, 2-time Vezina winner. We'll see how much he can bring to the table stable throughout the remainder of that contract, but that could be a very good tandem, however, with the likes of Spencer Knight. Just in 2 years, I would imagine, is when he would finally hit the NHL level, but time will tell. Fantastic freshman year for him at Boston College. So Spencer Knight has all the tools to be a great goaltender. We're not just talking starter. We are truly talking a franchise altering goaltender. He might not have that peak than some other goaltenders that you will see momentarily, but he surely has that capability to be a consistent and sound goaltender in the NHL for, we're talking, 5 to 10 plus years. At number 3, we have arguably the best goaltender out of this entire list, and it is very close between who I have at 2 and 3, and not far off from 1 either, so just keep that in mind. These are all fantastic goaltending talents. But the oldest guy you'll see on this list is ILYA Sorokin, the 25-year-old who spent over 5 years. I believe he's played 8 years to date in the KHL. That's crazy. He's finally going to hit the NHL next season as the number 1, no doubt in my mind, for the New York Islanders. He signed his ELC with them after being a third-round draft pick back in 2014 by the Islanders. The goaltender, 6'2", 176 pounds, in the KHL this past year, playing for Moscow, the same team that I believe Kirill Kaprizov played for. I could be wrong. If I am, let me know, but I don't think I am. In 40 games played, he had 26 wins, 10 losses, 3 overtime losses, a goals allowed average at 1.50, I should say, and a save percentage of .935. The year prior, back in 2018, 2019, in 40 games played, 28 wins, 6 losses, 4 overtime losses, a goals allowed average of 1.16 and a save percentage of .940. Sorokin has been dominant at every single level. He's been the best goaltender outside of the NHL to date. Truly a phenomenal guy, a consistent guy who has a save percentage on average of at least 9.930%. Remarkable numbers. He has amazing accolades. He's won it all when it comes to the KHL championship. He's done great things at the Olympic level as well. He has all the accolades except for having an NHL debut, but he will finally break that barrier, break the ice in the NHL next season for the Islanders. Is going to create a great rivalry with a guy that I think you know, who I'm going to touch on here, but just a phenomenal goaltender who over these next 5 years should easily be one of the best in the entire NHL with a stellar defense in front of him, or a defensively minded game in the New York Islanders. I think Barry Trotz's system is going to bode so well for a guy like ILYA Sorokin. He's so balanced. Truly a remarkable goaltender. There isn't one thing about his game that I don't like. And regardless of who you're a fan of, whether you're an Islanders fan or a hockey fan, you need to be excited about ILYA Sorokin. He's going to be a dark horse to go for the Calder next year, assuming he gets big playing time with a fellow Russian in Varlamov, who's definitely going to help him with his transition to the NHL. But watch out, guys. ILYA Sorokin is finally here at the NHL level, and boy, is he going to be something. At number 2, we have a guy that one could definitely argue maybe isn't as high as Sorokin. I'm sure, depending on who you ask, is going to be flip-flopped back and forth constantly. But I have Igor Shesterkin. And yes, I'm a Rangers fan, but I'm trying to say this as unbiased as possible when I feel that Shesterkin just gets the bump, the nod over a guy like Sorokin, mainly because of the experience he's had at the AHL and NHL level already. Shesterkin has yet to hit the mark to be disqualified as a prospect / rookie in the NHL, so that's why he's still considered in this video. But he did have a decent campaign in the North America this past year, and I will get to that in a second. The 6'2", 182-pound goaltender, 24 years of age, was drafted by the Rangers in the same draft as the Islanders, but just around later in the 4th round, grew up admiring Henrik Lundqvist, and here he is taking over the throne in New York City as that number 1 goaltender, and that great tandem between him and fellow Russian, even though he's originally from Bulgaria, but he classifies as Russian, and Alexander Yuryev. And Shesterkin is phenomenal. I can tell you personally, I've seen plenty of his games. I saw him in 2 games last season for the AHL, for the Hartford Wolfpack. Phenomenal goaltender. I am so ecstatic to see what he does at the NHL level. In the NHL, however, because he did make the reigns, he just pushed himself into the league because of how amazing of a season he was having in the AHL. So let's start there, actually. In 25 games played this past season, in his first year at the AHL level, he had 17 wins, 4 losses, 3 overtime losses. By the way, this guy doesn't lose often at any level he's been at in his hockey career. A goals allowed average of 1.90 and a save percentage of .934. At the NHL level in 12 games played, he has 10 wins, 2 losses, a goals allowed average of 2.52, and a save percentage of .932. Amazing numbers, had a great rookie campaign. He had the best numbers, I think, for any NHL goaltender in their history, or one of when it comes to their first 10 to 12 starts in the NHL. Amazing numbers for him just coming in the league in his own, pushing himself into that lineup. And then in the 2018-2019 season, in his final year in the KHL, he had, in 28 games played, he had 24 wins, 4 losses, 0 overtime losses, a goals average of, get ready for this, 1.11, and a save percentage of 953. Shesterkin, like Sorokin, has so many accolades that are similar. They're really close friends as well, so they're both ecstatic to be playing as rivals in New York. I'm sure they will. I wouldn't be surprised if they're even roommates one day. They have that connection. I cannot wait to see it at the NHL level, and there's great debates to have as to who's going to be better over these next 5, possibly even 10 years, but that could be pushing it. But the future is bright, heavily bright for both these Russian goaltenders, and what a rivalry is going to be, and I plan to touch on that in a future video. Igor Shesterkin, he is the heir apparent to the king, Henrik Lundqvist himself, and all Ranger fans, all hockey fans should be ecstatic for what he is going to do as the #1 next season for, yes, the New York Rangers. At number 1, we have, yes, the one, the only Yaroslav Askarov. And I know it may seem like a stretch to have him here at 1 already, when Tyler, he was just drafted this year in the first round, 11th overall, to, yes, the Nashville Predators. Like a guy like Connor Ingram, what a duo that could be going forward as a fantastic tandem in the AHL. But Askarov, what separates him from the rest is this pure and raw talent he already has as an 18-year-old playing in the KHL. And truly what the limit and his ceiling looks like is far higher than all the other goaltenders I've discussed with you today, in my personal opinion, and really what the stats will tell you. Askarov, 6'2", 176 pounds. Everyone's been so big except for Wolf, really, in these rankings. First round in 2020, as I mentioned, the best goaltender this year's draft had to offer. And in the KHL thus far to start this season, the 2020-2021 season, in 6 games played, he has had remarkable saves. So stellar, so flashy, so otherworldly out there, really making stops that remind you of guys like Dominik Hasek, just for example. 4 wins, 2 losses. It goes a lot average, a 0.94. Amazing. And a save percentage of 963. Remarkable numbers just through, I know it's a short stint. And then last season, in the 2019-2020 season, he only had 1 game played in the KHL, 1 goal, and he also had a goals average of 2.00 and a save percentage of 920. He had 18, I believe, VHL appearances, in which he also had strong numbers there, right around 920 save percentage, and a goals average at 2.45 or 2.54. I could be getting them confused, but nonetheless, remarkable numbers. He's done it all. He was fantastic for World Juniors for Team Russia, and is just such a phenomenal goaltender with every aspect of his game. He's so mature for an 18-year-old. He's going to be dominant in the AHL as soon as he hits the league. That is how strongly I feel about this guy. You need to be amped for a guy like Yaroslav Askarov. He has all the potential in the world to not just be a franchise talent, but we're talking a multiple Vezina winner, or at least a multiple Vezina finalist, nominee, what have you. This guy has all the right potential, all the tools to truly be one of the best goaltenders the NHL will have to offer over this next decade. So yeah, I'd be pretty excited if I were you. Alright guys, that's going to conclude my rankings. I know this video went a little longer than expected, but that's been the case lately. I've been wanting to get all my voice and thoughts out regarding these rankings, because if I just tell you the stats, you know, what else is there to know about the guy? I want to give you guys a valid reason, at least a snippet, a couple minutes long, as to why I feel the way I do about this player and why I feel that they are so deserving of being in their ranking in this top 10. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Hit like and subscribe button, put on that notification bell. As always, guys, it means a ton. Help us get a 3K subs. I know we are so close to just 2.2K, so help us get to that short-term goal and that long-term goal of 3K. It would really mean a lot, guys. I do so much for this channel on a daily basis. I spend hours and hours on end, so I just hope you guys understand that the effort is definitely being put in, and it's going to continue to be for a very long time here. I can only imagine what the future holds. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you agree, disagree. My honorable mentions here are going to be Kaapo Kähkönen from the Minnesota Wild. He just missed the cut for me. Also, another guy like Jeremy Swayman from the Bruins organization, who's been really solid in college. Another guy that just missed the cut for me. If you want to go further, I also have a guy like ILYA Konovalov, I'm probably saying his name wrong, from the Edmonton Oilers. He just missed. I had him in my top 10, then I pulled him out last second. It was really hard to justify putting him in, but he has had a great start to the KHL this season, has had strong numbers through 3 KHL seasons thus far since being drafted in the 3rd round by the Edmonton Oilers a couple years back. So keep an eye on him. He's definitely a sleeper that could crack in my top 10 in 6 months from now. Time will tell. And then if you want to go further, Tyler Wall for the New York Rangers, Vevolainen for the Columbus Blue Jackets. Same thing with Tarasov, but not as much. But both those guys were honorable mentions. Michael DiPietro for the Vancouver Canucks, and Kevin Mandolese or Sogard. Either one of those. Probably Sogard, I would say, as of now, for the Ottawa Senators. Those are all goaltenders that are honorable mentions that one could argue is deserving to be in this list, and I completely get it. But here's my top 10. I hope you agree, but if you disagree, let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Check out previous videos in the end screen, and I'll catch you guys real soon. See ya.